Three big stories of the year: the lawsuit amongst Steely Dan, the lawsuit amongst Fleetwood Mac, the firing and sexual allegations of Boy Tinsley from the Dave Matthews Band. We finally have an update on the Fleetwood Mac situation in his first television interview with our good buddy Anthony Mason, who was nice enough to always reach out to us here at EHM and appreciate what we're doing. Super good guy. He got to sit down with Lindsey Buckingham. I have some highlights from that interview. There is a lot to unravel here. Let's start with where the band is at. Lawsuit apparently resolved, which is a good thing. Let's pick up Anthony with Lindsey on the status of the lawsuit.
This is all resolved.
Yes, it is.
And how long has that been for?
Only a couple of weeks, and now we've all signed off on something.
And you're happy with it?
I'm happy enough with it. I'm not out there trying to twist the knife at all. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to look at this with some level of compassion, some level of wisdom.
But do you feel like you've been kicked out of the family?
I do, but I don't feel that it was something that was my doing.
But that's gotta hurt.
It hurt for a while. I did walk around for a few months with a very visceral reaction to that.
So I think what you're going to pick up here in most of Lindsey's comments is, this isn't my fault. This is all Stevie's fault. He really does put a whole bunch of blame on Stevie Nicks. And I'm going to tread lightly here because I know there's a lot of hardcore fans on both sides of this. So we are literally just going to dabble in the reality that is, this is what Lindsey is telling us. Like, this is Lindsey's perspective on the whole situation.
Azoff called me up, and he was basically screaming at me.
He was screaming at you?
He was screaming at me on the phone saying, "You've really done it this time." And I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He said, "Stevie never wants to be on stage with you ever again." And I'm going, why?
So that was regarding the firing. Now, the band still claims that this was a scheduling conflict. You know, they're still holding true, saying that Lindsey didn't want to go out on tour and want to do all this and that. Lindsey is saying that he agreed to push his own tour. He had acquiesced to the band because that was the story. The band said, well, Lindsey wanted to go do his thing and push the Fleetwood Mac tour. But Lindsey is saying that's not true. I had originally felt like that, but then I agreed to push my own tour. But that it all had surrounded around this Music Cares evening and Lindsey dancing behind Stevie as she made her acceptance speech.
It appeared to me that she was looking for something to hang on me in order to instigate some kind of a coup. Irving told me a couple of days later that she'd given the band an ultimatum and either I had to go or she was going to go.
Do you have any sense of why Stevie would have reached this point?
I don't know. None of it makes sense to me. You know, Fleetwood Mac, the five of us together is, in my mind, is a very sacred thing.
So, Lindsey, not really sure what exactly it was. I am in a little bit of the same boat here in that, not that I don't know what it is. I think he knows what it is. I just think that nobody's talking about it. And I don't want to be like all this grand conspiracy that it's something else, but it's got to be something. I mean, if it was a scheduling thing, but he said he agreed to push, then that's one thing. If it was this Music Cares thing, which is childish in its own right, okay, that's something else. But those, you know, that's not even two things, because the first thing he eventually agreed to. He was like, oh, okay, cool. We'll just go on the Fleetwood Mac tour. I'll push my thing. According to him. According to him. Again, we're only going to go with what we have on the record here. The band says otherwise, but the latest thing from him is that he said he would eventually agree to it. So could it have just been I mean, to me, it feels like it's not the Music Cares thing, but that the Music Cares thing was the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. Which is quite ironic because there is plenty in their history that we know and that we don't know to, lead to that straw. At the same time, there's still all that stuff in their history, yet they have been coexisting for quite a while. It doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense to me in that right. What did not air on some of the Saturday morning, was it Saturday or Sunday morning? No, Saturday morning, I think he does, Anthony. Anthony does Saturday morning. They went a little bit more into the fragmented relationship between Lindsey and Stevie. And what's interesting about this is you'll hear Lindsey and his approach to this essentially say that there's some sort of jealousy from Stevie to Lindsey. That he got married, that he had a family, that his soulmate, and that she's never done that. And so essentially, as they talk about this fragmented relationship amongst the band, you'll hear Lindsey sort of get into that area.
That was what I was told by Irving, that she gave them an ultimatum. Either Lindsey goes or I go.
Yeah.
And it would be like something as absurd as Mick Jagger saying, either Keith goes or I go. I guess we need the singer.
Yeah.
So.
I know. I want to stop it there because I don't buy that. I don't buy the fact that they chose Stevie's side over Lindsey because she's the singer. That I don't buy, because he sings on plenty of songs. I get that he's like the guitar player and secondary singer, I guess, if you will. I don't know. I kind of saw them as both singers, but that would be the one hole I could punch into Lindsey's argument, which is that couldn't have been it. That couldn't have been it, that they just need the singer. Because although on the surface you think it would be easier to replace Lindsey, they did with a singer and a guitarist. You could still replace Stevie. It won't be the same, but neither is Mike Campbell and Neil Finn. Although I think that they too both are tremendous.
Do you have any knowledge of how the decision process went down with the band?
None.
Really?
No. I would love to. I did reach out. I even wanted to go over to Hawaii to see Mick, because Stevie was vacationing over in Maui, and wanted to go over there and sit with them and try to get through this. But there was clearly some other agenda going on, you know. So I don't know what that process was.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's like weird, when the story is Lindsey doesn't want to reschedule, he's so hard-headed, which is believable. Even fans of Lindsey know that. It makes what happened a lot easier. When you hear that he wanted to go and sort of mellow it all out and they wouldn't allow it, that to me tells me there's more there that we're just not aware of.
Maybe never will.
How would you describe your relationship with Stevie? And I know it's had a lot of different phases.
My relationship with Stevie is fragmented.
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of love there. But, you have to begin with the fact that in order to get through those early days, it was kind of an exercise in compartmentalization for everyone emotionally.
Yeah.
And for me in particular, I was not the one doing the leaving. She left me. But there was never really any chance to get anything like closure, because that takes perhaps some distance.
Mm-hmm. So that's
and so that kind of is how we got along. And I think you cut to 20, 30 years later, and that leads to a kind of a fragmented relationship. I think
it's interesting too, because I've never dated a coworker or anything like that, and to me, there's no closer of a coworker than a bandmate. That's somebody that you basically eat, sleep, work next to. It's horrific to me. Horrific. Like every relationship that I've been in that was ended separate ways. Some of them even moved to other states. And I'm not proud to say that, but it's true. But imagine you go through all that and they're right there next to you. And you don't have that distance and you can't put that closure in. I mean, it sounds weird, but it's easy to see some of that stuff bubbling up some 30 years later.
I think, sometimes she might find it difficult that I was lucky enough to find my soulmate late in life and got married and had my first child when I was 48 and have 3 beautiful children. And that was something she never did. She basically is living her professional life. And so maybe, I don't know if that plays into it or not.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know.
Sounds like you've asked yourself a lot of questions in the last year.
Well, you try to understand it, and beyond a certain point, you just have to accept it in a way. This is just another blip on the radar,
Yeah. It's a pretty big blip, though.
Pretty big blip, and again, as I say, I'm not particularly disappointed not to be out on the road doing another Fleetwood Mac tour right now, doing all those hits. What I am disappointed in is that we built this beautiful legacy that was about rising above all of this kind of stuff. I feel that legacy in what the band is doing now is being somewhat dishonored, and that does bother me.
Do you think there's any chance you could play with Fleetwood Mac again?
Oh, sure. I mean, I again, I'm not assuming anything at all. But nothing would make me happier than if we were going to do something like a farewell tour. So maybe they'll get this out of their system, and maybe they'll realize that this wasn't really the right thing. And if you're asking me, would I be open? Yes, of course. I would say, yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's amazing that through all of this, there's still that yeah, we'll get back together. No bigs. No bigs. Put it back together. No big deal whatsoever. It just seems like a little crazy, Which really makes me feel like this really was driven by Stevie, that the problem lies on her end. Not to take away from any of the situation, it doesn't mean it's less or right or wrong or whatever. Just she's the driving force in the reason why this isn't being put together. So there's got to be something there more than he made stupid faces behind me while I was accepting the Music Cares thing. There's got to be something more there. Has to be, that we all just don't know about. What's interesting about all of this is that there has actually been some communication between the band and Lindsey. You could probably guess who the person was that reached out to him, but I found this to be a little interesting.
She wrote me an email and basically said, "Dear
Christine, by the way, I'm sorry. Christine wrote Lindsey an email recently.
Dearest Lindsey, just know that I had nothing to do with any of this. Know that I miss you so much." She said, "I believe deep in Stevie's heart that she would like you to come home."
What did you take that to mean?
That maybe underneath everything, Stevie would like to see me back already, that maybe she feels ambivalent about what's going on. This could be just Christine expressing wishful thinking or expressing something she thinks will make me feel better.
Buckingham says he's open to getting back with Fleetwood Mac, but isn't expecting a reunion.
Have you made peace with the fact you might not ever
Oh, yeah.
perform?
I'm pretty much figuring that I won't, because, a lot of people who know how convoluted Fleetwood Mac's politics have been will say 2 years from now they're going to. And I'm like, I'm not so sure. It's something is a little different this time.
Yeah.
something's a little different this time. So he's like, yeah, I'd go back if they asked me to. But, and I've seen this actually from a lot of comments as we've been talking about it. People are like, who cares? They're going to be back together in 2 years. Well, you heard it right out of Lindsey's mouth. He doesn't think so this time. Feels like there's something different there this time. What that is exactly, I don't know. But I will say, before everybody comes yelling at me online with, rumors and hearsay and all this and that, it's hard to really delve into those, worlds. Like, we have to talk about what we know and what we absolutely know to be true. What happened? Not he said, she said stuff, and I know Lindsey's hairdresser, and she says blah blah. I appreciate all the comments online, but we got to go with what we know is to be true. But I feel like there's a huge chunk here that we just don't know. And Lindsey must know something. I mean, he must have an idea, but he's certainly not letting on, and neither is the band. So, lawsuit's over, settlement's been made. Christine reaches out to him, says, feels like Stevie regrets this already. That's interesting. Again, I love the way Lindsey, positioned that in. I don't know if that's how, she's interpreting Stevie right now, or if that's just her own hopeful, wishful thinking that they put it all back together. Who knows? But like any, loving situation, when there is that sort of breakup and you are out there, it's easy to see how any of the bandmates would feel. As great and wonderful as Neil Finn and Mike Campbell are, and they're unbelievable in their own right, to be out there doing that stuff, playing that music, and not, having one of those members there, I could see how you would miss Lindsey in that situation for sure. So there you go. Courtesy of our pals over at CBS this morning, Saturday morning. Anthony Mason, tremendous job. Real nice. A little bit of an update on what's going on with the Lindsey Buckingham Fleetwood Mac situation.